Hello and welcome to another episode of the WealthStyle podcast. My name is Iván Watanabe here with my partner, Evan Wohl. Evan, what's going on, man? Good morning.
Good morning. Exciting. Love doing these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're very excited to have on a great friend, client of the firm, Rob Weintraub. Rob, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good on this very cloudy, rainy, wet late summer morning because it is still summer. We have not yet transitioned to default officially, and I
I
want to
feel
hold on
you.
to summer as long as I can.
I absolutely feel you there. So we're excited to have you on, Rob, to come on and talk about your expertise sort of in the high-end watch market, as I'll have you introduce yourself in a second, but really just the topic for today is all of the questions that I seem to be asking myself, having conversations with friends that know nothing about the watch market, but really want to get into it. And it seems like it's a very interesting sort of whole entire animal amongst its own. So really wanted to have an expert come on today. So why don't you just kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, your background, and then Manfredi as well.
Okay, well, I'm Rob Weintraub. I have been at Manfredi Jewels now for about 16 years. I am the manager there. And my background is kind of varied and kind of different, interesting. So I have two music degrees, and I was a professional opera singer before I got into
Ooh.
the watch business. So I
Should
still
we, should we do a little rendition just to for our audience?
you can Google me. You can find
Okay.
some YouTube stuff, but I'm not warmed up.
Mm.
So I got into this business purely out of the intrigue and love of mechanical watches. I had it's kind of a little bit of a long story, but I had some a fellow singer friend who was into watches, and I started learning about them on my own. And it's an interesting world, and I kind of like to connect the two worlds in the sense of with high-end mechanical watches, especially for the legacy brands like a Vacheron Constantin or Breguet or Blancpain. These brands, Blancpain has been around since 1735. Vacheron Constantin has been around since 1755. And so I make that connection with classical music and opera, in that to truly, like, you can go to an opera and you can enjoy it, and you can also look at a fine timepiece and see how beautiful it is and enjoy it. But there's a much richer experience of it when you actually do your research. And so, just like with classical music, you can find out about the composers and what was going on at the time, and the librettist, and what makes that story, and the history of the singers, and all of this. It's a very rich, much richer experience. And I think the same thing is true of mechanical watches, where if you delve into the history of a brand or even a specific model or a current model, and what in the brand's history has informed that current model, and the technology of watchmaking, how it has advanced, and all of these different things just make it a really rich experience. So I that's sort of a little bit of my background of how I got into this. And I still, to this day, having been in the business now, I don't know, close to 20 years, I really still enjoy and marvel at the artistry and technology and hand workmanship, and what fine mechanical watch is, that is really unlike anything else these days that you can purchase, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, we've been having this conversation recently, and obviously your passion for watches and timepieces is evident, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
But for most of us, we sort of look at it two ways. I would say one is just, a beautiful thing to wear on your wrist. And then another one might be, the investment opportunity that potentially might, be present in that watch market. And I know, I'm just curious to share your experience over the last couple of years, specifically during COVID. How was that market? Did you think it was way overvalued, way too hot? Was it just completely unreasonable? Like, give us a little bit of background there.
Right. Well, things did go a little crazy during COVID, and so I'm coming off, as far as the business is concerned, my best 2 years ever for our store. Um, so there's a lot of factors that went into this. Mainly is that people were at home during COVID, and they weren't traveling, they weren't spending money on that. People that are in this type of market did pretty well financially, I think, during that time. So it was a convergence of a lot of things. And then as things started heat up, it was also combined with, because of COVID, lack of product. So things slowed down in terms of production. And then you had this backlog of a convergence of people wanting specific watches, them not being available, and people getting into watches that weren't beforehand. So I want to preface anything I'm going to say with, I would never tell anyone to buy a watch as an investment. That's not what it's about. I would tell everyone to buy what you love. Do your investigation. Really research the brand, the watch, try them all on and see what speaks to you. And when you look down at your wrist and you see what you're wearing, this happens to be, I'm wearing today a Zenith titanium skeleton, a Zenith Defy Classic, which is no longer available. They've retired this model and came out with a different one. But whatever you're going to buy, I think it's important to buy what you love, something that's going to make you smile when you look down at your wrist. And what I will say about intrinsic value is that all of these mechanical objects, if you maintain them, will outlive you and maintain some value. Okay, that's an important point. Some value. I don't know what the future value of some of these things are going to be. I don't. And if I did, then if I had them in my case at the retail price, why would I have sold them? I would have
Right.
held on to them. So I can give you a perfect example of a watch by an independent watchmaker called FP Journe, Francois Paul Journe. We were one of the original dealers of the brand. He still to this day makes about 700 watches a year. And the demand got so great for them that now they are only being sold through, in the US, through 3 boutiques. So they closed down all their dealers, which is very frustrating, in the sense that we took this brand from the beginning and we built them up and helped to promote them. And then they become so successful that they don't need us as an independent retailer anymore. So there's one specific model called the Chronomet Blue. It's a watch that's in tantalum. It's their entry level price point, and that watch, I think, retailed for around $19,000. So now, if you want to buy one, you can get them on the secondary market, and you're going to pay probably around 100K. Okay,
Wow.
right? Because supply and demand. So that watch is not any different when it was sitting in our case. It wasn't anything hot. We'd get it in, it'd sit for a little while. We'd sell it. We'd order another one in the beginning. Then it took on this life of its own. Now, if I had known that it was going to be, I should have told the owner of Manfredi at the time, you know what? This watch, I know it's 2012, but in 2020, that watch, or 2021, that watch is going to be worth 100K. So every one we get, we should put in the safe and not sell it. We don't do that with anything, and we never
Right.
have,
Right.
because that's how we look at it. So we sell a watch on the merit of the watch, and I advise clients on their preferences, what is in their collection. I like having a diversity of a watch collection. The nice thing is, as I said, some of these will go up in value, some might not, and I just don't know. I can only, and so the whole point of this is really to buy, what you like. And it's very frustrating for us as retailers who, I carry, I don't know, at this point it's 37 different watch brands, and people come in and they want to know, what's this watch going to be worth? Is this a good investment? And the reality is that I don't know. I know we can talk about what specific brands have performed well in recent years, and we can talk about historical things and all of that. But the reality is that I don't know. So I advise clients more so on their own preferences, what else is in their collection, what they like, what their lifestyle is, all of these different things. And getting back to the original question, as far as what's going on in the marketplace today, there has been sort of a little bit of a return to kind of pre-COVID, for certain things, where there's not these big wait lists for products, that some products that did have big wait lists. And People are traveling again. We're really in this post-COVID world where it's more of a kind of a normalcy of, with the exception of certain brands, as I said, and we'll talk about that more as we move on in the podcast. But so again, this all goes back to buying what you like and what you're going to enjoy. Because I mean, Ivan, you and I have discussed about this, how, look, if you guys want an investment, like, go see Ivan, go see Opus,
Right.
like, put your money there. They'll tell you a good mutual fund. They'll tell you where you're going to put your money, where there's a little bit more historical thing. This is not, I don't like to talk about watches as investments.
Yeah.
It just, because the reality is that we don't know. All I can do is use my expertise, having done this a long time, to advise you where you're going to get the most enjoyment out of it. And it's a bonus when something does, like you have this model, where, and I can give you an example in terms of values of an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, right? That's a very hot watch. It's an iconic watch that was that came out in 1972. There's a great rich history. I own one. And at the height of, say, 2021, so at the time, that watch, I think back in the day, it retailed for around 17,900 or 18, between 17 and 19,000 was the retail price for that watch. At the height, during when things were really crazy, people were getting 60K for that model. Now they've advanced the model. There's now 2 different generations versus the one I own. And now I think that watch has come back down in terms of what they're trading at, if you really want to use that word. I don't like
Sure.
using that word because, again, this is not stocks. And I think it takes all the sort of specialness. When you start talking about watches, it turns it into a commodity. And I think these are really beautiful works of art. And they're one of the few things these days that is still popular, that's purely mechanical. It's not electronic. And there's so much hand workmanship that goes into it. So there's a humanness about it. And so, I didn't know at the time it was going up. You'd think, oh, I should have sold that watch, but I still like the watch.
Yeah.
So that's where all of this sort of business about convergence of buying something you like with buying something that's going to maintain or go up in value. In this case, that one worked out for me, but I never bought it because of that. I bought it because I loved that watch. It was an iconic watch.
Yeah. And you've talked about there being a market where super high-end watches are getting traded amongst owners, right? Like, if I really love my watch, but I'm like, I've been wearing this for the last 2 years, maybe I want something else, similar value, but I'm not going to go buy something else, right? That there's almost a community of watches getting traded amongst each other. Can you talk a little bit about sort of how that works and, what types of watches are in that market? And I just found that super interesting.
Right. Well, we have many clients who are big collectors. And again, this is entertainment, who will trade in and out of watches regularly. Sometimes they've owned it for a month or a half a year, barely worn, and they just decide to rejigger their collection. I'm guilty of that too. It's like, in a sense, you look at the same thing over and over again on your wrist, and you might love it, or you just want to get something else, whatever it is. So there are platforms online where people do this. They do it themselves. And of course, the pre-owned watch market is very big, and we do trade-ins, and we offer a consignment option at Manfredi. So if you have something that you want to get out of, you bring it to us. We give you a value against a new watch that we're going to take it in a trade. And we also offer a consignment option where we discuss the price and we find what we think is the right price to price it at, so it will sell, because there's no point in it's sitting. And we take a 20% commission on that selling price. And then we have it professionally photographed. We promote it both in our pre-owned section in our store, but we also put it online at different websites like Chrono24, Time Zone, WatchNet. There are a lot of sites like this. So there are guys who do this themselves too, or eBay. they have an account, or through these chat rooms or this community, they will do their own selling. But a lot of times they come to us because these are large sums of money. And if you're just selling something, like if you're going to sell, especially something like a Rolex, where there's great demand and high value, what are you going to meet a guy at a coffee shop and exchange, 10 grand in a suitcase? I mean,
Yeah.
so that's why they feel comfortable coming to us, and it's worth spending either that 20% or the trade in value toward the new watch. But I mean, it's amazing how many guys, again, it's their entertainment. You can go gamble away money. You can go to the bar. There's a lot of different things that you can play golf. There's so many different places you can spend your money. And so when people say, but they can't wrap their head around people losing money on traded in watches, but that's part of the game and it's part of the entertainment. And just like on some cases, you actually gain and you do really well. In other cases, you lose, and that's just part of the entertainment of it, part of the enjoyment, I think.
Have you found that because smartwatches have become so much more popular over the last 5-10 years, that there's been less interest in high-end mechanical watches, or it's just not correlated at all?
No, I actually think it's the opposite. I think that smartwatches is like a gateway to, and especially now with there's so many
Interesting.
watch dials on an Apple Watch, and there are apps you can use where you can actually put the dials of famous,
That's
like I
right.
mentioned, an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, or
Yeah.
some of these high-end watches, um, that can translate over into people wanting the real one. Because I own an Apple Watch. I think it's great, and I wear it when I'm in my house. I wear it to sleep, and I wear it when I'm working out. But if I'm going out in public, like today, this morning, I was just out running errands, so I didn't have to take my Apple Watch off, but I did to put on my Zenith, because I don't. It's my business, of course, but I don't feel like I'm properly dressed, even if it's not like out in public, to be wearing an Apple Watch. But other people disagree, and they like that. But we've also seen a phenomena recently where Swatch has come out with these collaborations. So the first collaboration was the Moon Swatch and the iconic Omega Speedmaster Professional, which is the first and only watch worn on the moon. They came out with a Swatch quartz version of it in different variations, and those were selling. It's a $260 retail, and at the height, I think people were getting over $1,000 for them online. Um, and they're still, you can only buy them at Swatch stores. People wait in line, and we saw a real, I think, an uptick in the popularity of the original Omega Moonwatch as a result of that collaboration. So I think all of these things are just good for the mechanical watch industry. And once people learn about these things, educate them, and most importantly, see them in person. It's really important, because it's one thing to look at a picture of something online. It does not translate to seeing that beautiful work of art on your wrist and realizing how much hand workmanship goes into it. And so that's where, a store like ours, where you can see 37 or close to 40 different brands under one roof, and compare and contrast and see why this one, why a Seiko, or a Hamilton, which is a great watch that you can get for under $1,000, um, comparing that to a high-end Vacheron Constantin or Breguet, or these independent watchmakers that we are known for. We carry some of the best independent brands, like Kari Voutilainen, who makes maybe 50 to 75 watches a year, and every piece is bespoke, and they start at around $100,000, and you have now a 5 to 7 year wait once you place the order. You have the Gronefeld brothers, which is an independent brand that we have taken on, that now have closed their books. So I have things on order. They're not taking any orders right now, because they only make between 100 and 125 watches per year. And they just actually hired on 5 new watchmakers. So hopefully the production will ramp up, but they're not even taking orders right now because they're so back ordered. And then we have some of these more special brands like Singer Reimagined. People probably listening to this podcast probably are aware of the Porsche Singer collaboration, where if you Singer Porsche, some of them are over $1 million. Well, they make watches, and they make beautiful watches that are informed by those design elements. So we have those. Laurent Ferrier, which was one of the original designers and watchmakers for Patek Philippe, has his own brand. And this is a watch that's soared in popularity. We were the first and only dealer in North America for many years. So back in the day, I was dealing directly with the guy who was running the brand in Switzerland, getting these shipped to us directly from Switzerland, and setting the US retail price together with the exchange rate, all of that, to now they have, at one point they had a US distributor, and now they have their own subsidiary, part of the company here in the US. So again, being able to see all of these beautiful works of art under one roof, in one place, and to be able to compare and contrast the different watches, I think is really important when you're considering doing all of this and getting into this, and understanding why one watch costs 25,000 and one watch costs 2,000, and seeing the differences between them. So that's sort of the really fun part of my job, is when somebody comes in and they've never seen these things in person, and then I can show them in person and they kind of get it. They get to understand why they cost what they do.
How many
That's a
watches do
lot
you
of fun.
have?
Personally, my
Yeah, yeah,
collection,
yeah.
at this point, I think it's around 15-ish.
Okay.
I just picked up, I mean, and again, it doesn't have to be expensive. I was just traveling in China, and I was able to pick up some vintage Chinese watches that two of which are new. When I say new old stock, it means that they were never sold. They were new and they were sitting. They're Nanjing watch company, and the watches, I had the card. The date of manufacture on them is 12/31/1973. And I
Wow.
have two
Never
of them that
never worn.
never worn, just fun. And those three, and I bought one also, a Shanghai watch that was from 1980. And those three watches together cost me the equivalent of about $55. You
Hmm.
know, so fun. And then the whole point is that a watch doesn't have to be super expensive for you to enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah.
I own two Seiko divers, one watch that retail for 850, the other watch that retails for $1,200. And those are great watches. They're in my rotation. I wear them. So again, and these collaborations, I mean, Blancpain, which is a brand that we carry, they just came out with a collaboration of the 50 Fathoms with Swatch. 50 Fathoms is the first dive watch known by Jacques Cousteau, originally worn by Jacques Cousteau in one of his exploration movies. And so that's a real iconic watch, and they've done this Swatch collaboration. So I think this can only help, where people see these sort of, other versions of it, and they want to see the real version, and they come to us and they get a sense of seeing the real version that costs, $15,000, and why it does. So
Yeah. You mentioned sort of the value of having a relationship with you, and sort of
right.
in a store like Manfredi, you know, going through this purchase of a Rolex is probably one of the most frustrating, annoying things that I have ever experienced, because for the
I'm
most part,
sure.
you're like, hey, I've got money. Can I go? I have enough money to go buy this thing. Can I just trade my dollars
Well,
in exchange for this product? And when I was doing research to buy a watch, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just look at this, the pre-owned market. So I started looking. I'm like, why is a pre-owned watch 10 to 15% more than a brand new one? I've got time. I'm not in a rush. I'll just wait. And thank God I have a relationship with you all, because it's like, when you have no idea when you're, gonna actually receive
yes.
this thing. So one, just kind of talk a little bit about why you think it's important to establish a relationship with a shop like yours. And then two, sort of, what is the actual process? Demystify it for people, what it is
Okay.
like in the Rolex market today, because I feel like
Gotcha.
that is taking up a lot of my conversation.
I understand. And when you say you're frustrated, let me tell you, we are frustrated too. Not with we are thrilled to be an official Rolex jeweler in our New Canaan location. So we have two locations. We have Greenwich Avenue in Greenwich, and we have Elm Street in New Canaan. And so we are an official Rolex jeweler in our New Canaan location, and we are so honored and thrilled to be an official Rolex jeweler, and to have that. That's an amazing thing. Now, What's the frustrating part is that people like you, or just in general, I'm in the business to get people what they want, and I want to make people happy, right? I mean, ultimately, right? It's just like you
Yeah.
want to make people happy. And so I hate disappointing people. And when people call up and ask for these watches, and I get it. And let me tell you, there's a couple of different levels of this. Like there's the Rolex. I've actually likened it to 3 different levels. There's the Rolex level where I've got 10, 15 grand. I know, I'm going to pay whatever the retail price is for this watch, and I want it, and you can't get it. Okay. The next level of that is, as I mentioned, Audemars Piguet. If you go into an Audemars Piguet store and you want to buy a stainless steel Royal Oak, I don't want to say that they will laugh at you, but they don't know you.
Yeah.
And so they're going to say, well, do you have any purchase history with us? What other Audemars Piguet watches do you own? Well, we'll see. And so, wait, I want to spend 25, 30 grand and you can't take my money? Then go and try and buy a Richard Mille watch. Okay. You've got $150,000 that you want to spend on a watch. You go in there, you're ready to go. You walk in, and maybe you've read about it, whatever it is, and you don't know what's going on. And you walk into the Richard Mille store in New York City and you say, I'm ready to go. Got my 150K. I want this model. The same situation. Do you have a history? What? And so this is the challenge, because demand is greatly outpacing supply.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's where we're at with these high demand watches. Now, in the case of having a relationship, we'll then go back to tackling the Rolex question. But why it's important to have a relationship? I mean, we've been in business since 1988, so we have a very long history, and thankfully, we are widely known as one of the top retailers in the world, because we were one of the we have all these independent brands. I mean, we were one of the first Frank Mueller dealers, as I mentioned, Laurent Ferrier, Richard Mille. We were a dealer, and so we've become kind of somewhat of a mecca to have all these brands under one roof, and we have a great reputation in the industry because of this. Mainly because of our owner Roberto Capellone's vision of this store that started in 1988. So we have these long-term relationships with our clients. And what's beautiful about that is, number one, is getting to know these people. And so loving people and making these deep connections with them is great. And you're always celebrating a happy event, usually. But we are also a full service jeweler. So we carry all different brands of branded jewelry. And we also do custom work, and we do engagement rings and diamonds. And so we're a one-stop shop. So the whole point is you establish a relationship with us, and we believe in long-term relationships. One sale, we always talk about, one sale doesn't mean anything. We want you to keep coming back to us. And I really think of myself as an advisor. So we've done that for years. So the whole point is to have somebody, an associate, a salesperson, wherever you are in the country, having a relationship with somebody that you trust, that's going to do right by you, that's going to advise you the right way and treat you fairly, so that they're a profitable business. So they're making a profit, and you feel like you're being treated well, and it's a symbiotic relationship, so that you will keep coming back, that you feel that you're valued. And I mean, some of those benefits of long-term, I mean, we do events. I've taken clients to visit watch manufacturers in Switzerland, or just coming on just coming into the shop, sitting down, chatting about watches, and having an espresso or a scotch or a cognac or whatever it is. The level of hospitality, that's really important. And it's not just us. I think wherever you are, I think the most important thing is to have a trusted relationship, just like with your business, Yvonne. How long have we've known each other? What, 10 years now, I think?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So again, and doing right by them, just like you've done with me, and never pushing something just for the sake of making a sale. Really doing right by the client, advising them, and having that established relationship. So,
and Rob, how does that relationship sort of help the watch consumer from getting what they're looking for? right? So
Okay.
our relationship, you know, how
Yeah.
does that work?
Okay. So let's do two separate things. Let's first talk about, in general, I have a spreadsheet where I have people who are waiting for watches of the brands that we carry in Greenwich. And so when those watches come in, um, we decide who we are going to offer that watch to and who is that client. And, how long has that client been with us? Um, and what type of a client are they? Are they, respectful of our time? Or what's that relationship like? So obviously, just like you want to take care of your best clients,
Mm.
and um, and a well-rounded client. So a client who purchases jewelry, who does repairs, who sees you for service, who buys different brands of watches, all of that. Okay, so that's that. Now, when it comes to um, Rolex, what you want to do wherever you are is you want to visit that location. So we only sell Rolex over the counter in our New Canaan location. So you need to go there. And when you go there, you will see there are watches that are exhibition watches. So you can actually, again, getting back to what I was speaking about before, is to have the opportunity to see that watch in person, to try it on, and to decide if it is something that you love, that you want to purchase. And then we register your interest, and that you've been in the store. We take the notes, and eventually you will get that watch. And what I will suggest to anybody who's listening, and I tell this to people who just cold call us or whatever, especially from different parts of the country, I tell them, even existing clients from different parts of the country, when they ask me for Rolex, I tell them, establish a relationship with your local official Rolex jeweler that you will go in and visit. And I understand, like, for some people, they only want their one watch. They're not a watch collector. They don't have, crazy amounts of money to spend to build up that relationship. But I don't think you need to do that per se. I think it's a matter of being um, a nice person, being respectful, and continuously visiting that store. If you need a watch battery, if you need service, if you have an occasion, maybe you have a niece who's getting baptized, or um, something small. You just need everything that can be connected to that jeweler. Use that opportunity, and then constantly, and be respectful. And you go in there and say, hey, listen, I get it, and I registered my interest for this watch. I'm just stopping by to say hi. That's it. And you look around and you see, and just establish that relationship, because I think that obviously purchase history is important, but also being a nice person, being respectful of their time, understanding the situation, and just letting them know, reminding them that you still want this watch. I wish it were different. I wish everybody that said to me, um, I have a birthday next month and I really wanted a stainless steel Daytona, I wish I could say, sure, no problem. It's yours.
Yeah.
Because we're in the business to sell, right? We
Yep.
we
Yep.
want to, and so that's really the best option, I would say, as far as the people who are local to us. Go visit our New Canaan location, and we are expanding that store. We should have a grand opening. Should be ready sometime end of October, beginning of November. But we have a beautiful new space that's going to be really state of the art, spectacular, beautiful store. So it'll be a pleasure to go there. Right now we're in a temporary location, but that's okay. It's still a great experience going
Awesome.
there, and you can see. So, I wish I had some magic thing, but this is what has given the rise to the secondary market. There are people out there, and we tell people sometimes, you could have that watch tomorrow if you want to pay whatever the market price is, and hopefully you're getting an authentic watch. You might not, and that's the whole thing. So when you're buying on the secondary market and you're paying over retail, it's tough, because you have to be really careful. There are a lot of great fakes out there. And so just like I was talking about establishing a relationship, I think it's really important to trust your seller and know who you're buying from. That's really important, because people get taken all the time, and
Yep.
they don't even know until they send the watch in for service, and they send it to Rolex, and Rolex won't service it. They'll say this is counterfeit, or parts in this watch are counterfeit. So it's it's a crazy thing. But and as far as values go, especially look at some of these vintage Rolexes and what the prices are now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Rob, as we kind of wrap up here, is there
Yep.
there one thing that you want to make sure that you leave, the listening audience with? Is there one particular thing that you want to make sure that people kind of get away from our conversation today?
I think the most important thing for people when you're getting into watches is to do your research and find out if there's a watch like your buddy says you need to have this watch, whether it be a Rolex or an Audemars or a Patek Philippe or any of these brands where people say, examine why it is that you think you want that watch. Go and see that watch, compare it to other brands, and make sure that you're making the right decision for you, that you're going to be happy with. Because, you can, there's really nothing else I can think of that you you can have on your person day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're going to spend a lot of time with this beautiful mechanical object on your wrist. And so it's just important to really know enough about that and to know that you love it. All the other stuff aside, because we covered all of that about, intrinsic value, perceived value, all of that stuff we've spent time doing. But the most important thing is to know that you are going to absolutely love this and going to be happy with it for years to come. That's the most important thing, I think. And I'm out there for anybody who needs advice, who wants to chat about this. That's, as I said, that's the fun part of my job. So you can find me just Rob at manfredijewels.com. You can email me. You can hit up Ivan. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm just at Robert Weintraub. I'm not a big social media guy, so I don't do a lot on Instagram, but you can find me there as well. And I'll gladly answer your questions and talk you through it and give you some suggestions about it.
I appreciate it. Well, Rob, thanks so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate the conversation. I know it was valuable for me and for a lot of others. So
my pleasure.
Thanks for jumping on with us. And thank you to the listening audience for tuning in. Please click subscribe below so you can be notified when we have our next episode.